Hi, welcome to episode 26 of the ChessTDD series. I took a suggestion from a comment on YouTube, and instead of thinking about maybe at this point how to use SpecFlow to create like a predefined scenario, I'm going to stick with the board being visible in each scenario, and I'm going to create a code snippet, or I actually wound up creating two here, to kind of get the best of all worlds. So you don't have to watch me type as much, but you still get that nice visual for each scenario. So basically, I'm just going to use this is DevExpress's CodeRush, which is a tool I've been using for a lot of years, and it has kind of a I've never much cared for the Visual Studio snippet editor thing. This is a much more kind of intuitive deal. So I'm creating, unless you have CodeRush, I wouldn't worry too much about the details here, but I'm creating a snippet that will allow me to, as you'll see what I'm about to do here, if I type this out and hit space, it expands into that. So cool. Another thing I'll mention here in getting started, is that I'm splitting this video into two, a part A and B, because it winds up getting a little bit long, and I'm trying to keep them to 20 minutes or fewer. This one was hard to break up perfectly, but I'm going to break it maybe 10 or 11 minutes on this one, and then have a second 13-minute video. That is because that's really the only good way I could break this up. I discovered a bug when I was mostly done doing the Queen feature implementation. So you will look for that. So there's two links in the post if you're coming here from there, and otherwise there's a part A and B to this video. So next up, I am going from knight movement to queen movement, and what I'm going to look to do here is sort of, I'm getting into a rhythm with some of the scenarios of how I want to test. I don't necessarily want to test exactly the same thing for every piece. I'm, playing it by ear a little bit, maybe learning lessons from before, but I'd kind of like to cover the same basic concepts. So what does it look like for a queen to exist on the board by herself in her square, and can she move from there? And then what does it look like for the queen to be, in her default position on the board and on both sides? I learned that was important. And then I decided on another kind of testing scenario, which I wish I had maybe done earlier for king, or no, it wouldn't have made sense for king. Maybe bishop. I haven't done bishop yet. So I guess no need to criticize myself here. Brief interlude here. Now I also decided to create the empty board. So I feel like the full board and the empty board will give me kind of two good points, because I imagine what I'll either be doing is starting with the full board and leaving it, or maybe taking things away, or starting with an empty board and adding a piece or two. So those templates will probably get me most of the way I want to be. So there I go, using my new template for empty chessboard. And I'm going to say, okay, let's just put a queen on in her default position. And I think you'll see me pull in off the top, I didn't remember whether the queen was left of the middle or right of the middle on the white side. I don't play chess all that often anymore. So I can see that she's there in slot number 4. So the first thing is to go through the rather laborious process then of... Oh, sorry, I forget what I was doing here exactly. I got sort of messed up. I don't remember. Probably wasn't important. I think I was just hitting Control Z on the wrong code file or something like that. Oh, I remember. Sorry about this. I had accidentally messed with the zoom in one of these places. I suppose I could have edited this out in retrospect, but that's pretty time consuming. So I got a little messed up with the zoom, which made it hard to see. So I was trying to reset the recording settings, and this stayed a little difficult to see. I guess it didn't reset the zoom on this file. Strange as it sounds, it's sort of hard for me to tell as I'm working. Maybe I'm just not very observant, but it's hard for me to tell what the zoom looks like. So I'll be mindful of narrating what I'm doing here, maybe a little more than usual. So I have the queen on the empty board, and I'm going to go find her and say that the piece at 4-1, where she is, should have access, and then I'm going to have to go and type out a whole bunch of moves, because the queen is going to have all the squares to her left, all the squares to her right, all the squares in front of her, and then all the diagonal squares. So this is a place on the board from which the queen has a whole ton of movement. So it's a little bit tedious listing all these out, but I wind up going to do it. And this is where, I don't know, you hit this place where maybe copy and paste would be more efficient wholesale and then tweaking it, but that only works if you don't make mistakes and do something that kind of trips you up and winds up creating more of a problem than it solves. So it's another time where I'll mention that I tend to favor writing things out by hand. As you can see, I'm not always great about that, but wherever possible, I do try to do that for the most part. It varies a lot more here because I'm feeling my way through this tool. You'll see me stick to that a lot more in code. So I am doing this code rush shortcut for line dupes here because that gets me most of the way I want to be. So what I'm doing here, because it's hard to see, sorry about that, I've got all the pieces that are horizontally on the same plane as the queen. Now I'm starting to add in all the verticals, so that's going to be 4, 2 through 4, 8. So I created a bunch of dupes there, and I'm going to batch this and just kind of go through line by line. And you can see I made a mistake in there. I will catch that pretty much when I'm confused immediately when I get done about why it's still red. That doesn't take me long to notice. So now I'm going in and adding all the vertical pieces, or all the vertical spaces that the queen should have access to. And I, by and large, get this right. I just wind up with that one other duplicate in there that I overlooked as I was. See, there you go. That's the problem with copy and paste. Did it save me time? I don't know on balance. I don't remember exactly how long it took me to figure out what I had done wrong. But it illustrates the trade-off. Maybe in this case it saved me time. But think of how many cases you have where you do a quick copy and paste like that, and it takes you like 20 minutes to figure it out. Would have been quicker just to type everything out by hand. So yeah, I sort of started thumbing down through there and noticed it, and then I'm green. Didn't burn me too bad here, but it does tend to wind up burning you in some situations. So next up, I believe then what I want to do is put in a full board here and then basically just assert that the two queens, one on each side, don't have any moves. So in the default position, the default setup of the chessboard before anybody's moved, neither of the queens are able to move anywhere. So this is a pretty easy test to write. I'm going to go use my handy dandy new full chessboard snippet here, and then I'm going to just assert that both the white queen and the black queen have an empty set of moves. And this goes smoothly. It is the next scenario, and I'll do a break here shortly, that is going to cause the problem. So yeah, I just went and got the header. And then you can see that go green right away because it's the empty set of moves. So I'm going to say, okay, and then also, and I'm going to grab the black queen, the piece and she's on the other side, so I'm typing 5-8. So like all the other pieces line up facing each other, but the white queen and king and the black queen and king are inverted. So the white queen faces the black king and the other way around. So she is at 5-8, the black queen, and she also does not have any moves. So the next thing I looked at doing here was writing a test for the case of the black queen being surrounded. I wanted to say that, okay, if you surround the black queen with pieces, her movement is basically reduced to that of a king. This was, I don't know even what prompted me to write this test, but I'm glad I did because it exposed a bug. And I think kind of intuitively what I'm doing here is just kind of trying to create oddball situations. Like when you're writing unit tests, you want to be very directed and deliberate about the behaviors that you're testing. With these kind of acceptance tests, you're getting more into the way that users are going to use this. So I'm just going to say like, well, what are what are some game scenarios? I'll just kind of think of things. You kind of put your exploratory hat on more when writing unit tests as compared to writing, when writing acceptance tests as compared to unit tests. We're kind of thinking like, what does an actual real world usage of this look like, and what might users do to kind of break things? Okay, so I forgot. I wrote this test here, which is all I did was leave the same exact set of movements, but on the far end of one of these paths, I put a black queen and asserted that we should have the same movement with the black queen there, because that's just a capture move. So a queen with a capture opportunity is what I called that particular scenario. I forgot about that one. So actually we do wind up with slightly more even division. I'm going to cap it here at the point where I discover the bug, which is going to be after I build out this particular board. I'm going to see that this test is failing and it's not what I expect. So I'm surrounding the queen with pieces, and I'm going to assert that her movement is basically like that of a king when I do this. And I'm trying to surround her with real pieces, so I use 2 bishops, 2 rooks, and a pawn, which is theoretically possible, whereas, surrounding her with like 5 bishops wouldn't work on a real board. So I am trying to keep this to a scenario that could occur in an actual chess game. So now I am doing this fully expecting to wrap up here with a 12-minute episode, and then I get in here and I write this test and I notice that it's red, and I mouse over what happens when I'm done, and I see that there are like 2 extra moves that the queen is being given here, and I realize, this is going to take maybe a little while to resolve. So once I get this test in here and we see that it's failing and this is not a drill and it's not anything wrong with setup, I'm going to break. And I am going to then pick back up in a second video here that you can watch separately. So here I have, and now I'm writing the last of my moves that should be in here. This is the legitimate moves. And so I'm looking at that thinking, that's curious. Let's see what's wrong. So I mouse over, and what you can't see easily is that it's expecting 5, which is what I put in. It's actually getting back 7 possible moves for this queen, and that's a problem. So I go in here, and I think, so I went into the code, and you'll see here where I see this is really a bug. I set a breakpoint. Actually, I noticed a dead code method, and I was tempted to delete it. Then I remembered my red-green refactor discipline, and you don't alter the code when you have failing tests. So I went in here, and I hit it in the debugger, and I'm going to put the breakpoint down here on this collection assert. I like to stay out of the debugger if I can, but what I wanted to do here is look at these 2 collections and see if I could see what was going wrong. Is this a setup thing, or is there some kind of problem? So what I do is I get in there and I see, yep, sure enough, 5 moves as compared to 7. So let me look at the moves I'm getting back from the board. So here, this is the table moves, and this is what I'm expecting. It's what I put in the feature. Now let me, so I was looking at the table coordinates again. Now let me look at these board moves. And what am I getting down here? I want to go and see what the wrong ones are in there that I shouldn't have. And I get to the bottom, and I see, 2-1 and 1-1, so something's fishy. So that's where I'm going to leave you, and I will pick up in the next sub-episode debugging this.